The Rolling Barrage. The Rolling Barrage is a fairly advanced defensive tactic used in World of Tanks by coordinated teams. This tactic, more than most others, is dependent on each member of the team being familiar with one another and their stats, movement, and behaviors, rather than sheer communication issues. So here's what you'll need to set up a proper Rolling Barrage. 3 or more of your clanmates, ideally someone you've trained and practiced this maneuver with. A bit of defensive terrain that screens you at least from direct fire. Hills, walls, building, the corpse of the moss you killed, the bones of Vic's forgotten victims. An enemy or enemy group to shoot at. Now most of you, I presume, know how to do the pop out and shoot and roll back, where you use a bit of hard cover such as a building or hill to shelter you when reloading, and popping out from behind it to take a quick snapshot at your enemy. The Rolling Barrage, in simple terms, is a team-based version of this tactic. Here are your goals when setting up a Rolling Barrage. Minimize enemy counterattack time. No tank should be in the line of fire for more than 2 seconds. Make sure the tank closest to the enemy has the best armor and the furthest away has the second to best armor. No other tank should be getting shot. Read the cues of each other's tanks so that you move nearly simultaneously. Minimize your aiming time by making sure you are pointed right and scoped in before you line up the shot. When setting up for the Rolling Barrage, have your heaviest armor closest to the wall or defensive cover, and thus closest to the enemy. Middle tanks should be lighter tanks that might need protecting, and the rear tank is likely to take fire as well, so should be the next toughest. Keep this in mind as you draw up your defensive cover, and make certain that you line up in such a way. You want to keep your formation very tight as you roll up to cover so that when you are all in position you maybe have a foot of space between your tanks. You are angled so that when exposed from cover you have your best armor angles and no one is sticking out further than the lead tank as you sit behind the cover. Don't worry about being so damn tight that you will rub against one another if you turn. You shouldn't be turning. Executing the Rolling Barrage. Each member of the barrage needs to keep their eyes on the tank directly in front of them. You will move less than a second apart from one another, and the moment that you see even the smallest twitch in the tank in front of you, you have to be ready to go. This means the lead tank should not play shot baiting, trying to roll just far enough forward and back to make them waste a shell. If you are moving, you are going for a shot. Make sure you scope in as soon as you move, and are pointed towards the enemy. As soon as you have a line to shoot, the front tank needs to take it and back the hell up. Don't stay to see if your shell hit or think that you will be able to reload and get a second shot. Don't move out further than you have to. The second tank in line will be right behind you. He should already be scoped in by the time the lead tank fires. As soon as the turret or hull of the lead tank is out of your line of fire, take the shot and back up. This continues down the line until everyone has taken a shot and is back in cover. If you have executed this well, 4 tanks will deliver 4 shots in less than 2 seconds from the first shot. You will have only exposed the first tank to enemy fire, and since it was the heaviest armored, minimize the damage received. If you have faster firing tanks like mediums, then it is entirely possible and quite acceptable to have the first tank fire again shortly after the last one, keeping up a nearly consistent volley of fire. Though naturally with heavy tanks this is not as likely to happen. This sounds simple, I'm sure, as you read this. However, like most things, reading about it and doing it are quite different. You need to be familiar with the guns of everyone on the team and make sure you aren't poking out until everyone is loaded or will be loaded by the time they need to fire. You need to have a sharp eye on your allies and get used to their patterns of movement. Sharp on the reflexes. Remember that you need to take your shots as quickly as possible and get back to cover. If you need to take a less accurate shot to do so, then do it. If aiming is going to result in you hanging out there for too long and getting tracked or hammered, you take your best swing at the enemy and get back to cover. Ultimately, this is more of a defensive tactic than an offensive one. It is great for punishing enemies trying to advance on you or picking out high-value targets that stuck their nose out too far. It is designed to minimize the damage you take when facing people who know where you are and are trying to whittle you down. You should be taking out targets quickly with this, as the nature of the tactic itself tends to automatically focus your fire on one enemy at a time, making simple fire coordination easier.